Hey, Church Unlimited, welcome to Throwback Weekend. I want to take you back now to May 21st, 2011, where we had Brian Head Welch, the lead guitarist for the heavy metal band Korn, in to do an interview. This is one of the most compelling stories of life change I've ever heard. Please enjoy.
And the winner is Korn, Freak on a Leaf.
I'm a new person. I'm going to be a great dad. I had become an animal.
How can you change so suddenly?
How do I know this is real? Everything was created for Christ and by Him, and we're created to be with Him. And it's the most incredible feeling because you're where you belong.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's stand to our feet and give a great South Texas welcome to Brian Head Welch. Get out here, bro. All right, man.
Thank you. Good morning.
All right. I think you got some fans here, man.
This is like the popular service. Dang, every seat's taken almost.
These guys are a little rowdy around here, but I think you're used to rowdy, so we should be all right. So.
Yeah, I think we'll be all right.
Hey, listen, I want you to just take us back and tell us your story a little bit. It's so great to have you here, and we've been having fun all weekend long. Okay, I want to go back, and I know these questions are getting redundant because we've been doing this for a while now, but let me just ask you, like, where'd you grow up? How'd you get into Korn? How'd all that start?
Bakersfield, California, home of Buck Owens and the show Hee Haw. And that's where he grew up. So I was 10 years old when I started playing guitar, and it just went on from there.
So you pick up a guitar at age 10, and like, what were your bands? What'd you listen to back then, back in the day?
Oh, Ozzy Osbourne, Motley Crue, Rat, just a whole metal thing, whatever, Van Halen, just all that stuff. You know?
I love it, love it. So you listen to all that, and then you pick up a guitar, and then this is kind of funny too. Most people I don't think know this, but you knew a bunch of guys from Korn when you're like 10, 11, 12 years old.
Yeah, I was saying earlier, I'll throw him under the bus again. Fieldy, who's the bass player, like I met him in junior high, and I had like Ozzy and all these metal bands on my Peachy, the folder that I don't know if they still sell
like
them
a little
nowadays,
Trapper Keeper, like little Pete. Yeah, I know those are. Yeah.
But he had like Duran Duran on his, so just that new wave band for all you younger folks. But it was, I would make fun of him and say, man, you got to get into metal, man. So he eventually came around.
So he started playing guitar, is that right?
Yeah, well, he was playing guitar because his dad played guitar and everything. But I told him, man, you're not very good, man. You need to switch to the bass because there's less strings. It'll be easier for you. So he ended up being Korn's bass player.
That's hilarious. But he's got a unique sound now.
Yeah, he mixed because he got into some funk music. So he's like put slap music with metal. So it's really cool.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, you're a band director.
I'm a band director. Just call my manager if you want to hire me.
Okay, so you meet these guys, and so you start playing in bands. And tell me some different band names, because you had 2 or 3 different bands you were in, as a kid, as you were kind of learning your skill.
Yeah, the first one was Pierced, P-I-E-R-S-T.
Okay.
And second one was Ragtime. Then there's one called Toy, and it was just stupid little cheesy bands. We'd get in a band and write some songs. We wrote originals, though. We'd play like one show and then break up, and 2 members would go form another band. So that's what it was like for a while.
Okay, so you're doing that, and then tell us about how you ended up going from there to Hollywood.
The guys, they got, like I said, Fieldy got into funk music, and so they got into the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and I didn't like that type of music. First of all, because I'm too white to like have the rhythm like that. Second of all, like I was a metalhead, and I love my metal. So these guys went through their little phase. They moved to Hollywood and tried to make it, and I stayed back with a girlfriend. She ended up breaking my heart. And I actually got suicidal a little bit. You know, my parents were like, "Get a job," you know, and I'm like heartbroken, wanting sympathy from them. And so I went to visit my friends who were in Hollywood, and they said, "Yeah, you need to get out of Bakersfield, move down here with us." So I moved down with them, and I was actually their roadie, the guitar tech, for their band called LAPD, and they would pay me with drink tickets and stuff, and I'd help them load the gear in. They'd play the show. I was supposed to tech for them during the show, but like they would just, I don't know, I'd steal the drink tickets and go drink while they're playing. And like if something went wrong, I'd be like, "Oh man, fix the chord by your left foot." Like I didn't even go help them. but they couldn't
got
fire
the beer
me.
in your hand. You're like, "Yeah, it's right there."
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. They couldn't fire me because, you know, they didn't pay me, first of all. And second of all, I lived with them. I was their friend. You know, what are they going to do? So it was just knucklehead days back then.
So when did they ask you to be in the band?
About 3 years after that, I was, you know what? I got sick of being broke. I was working at Pizza Hut, delivering furniture and stuff like that during the day, Pizza Hut at night. And I got sick of being broke, and I called my dad. He owned a couple of Chevrons, and I was like, "I want to work for Chevron and just learn the business, you know?"
Yeah.
And so I called my dad, and I was like, can I come back home? And he goes, "Well, chop your hair off, and you go work for me, you know, because my customers might think you're kind of shady." But so I cut my hair, and I was ready to move, and they asked me, they didn't want me to move. They were like, "Man, you're our friend, you know, we don't want you to go." So they said, "Why don't you get in a band with us?" And the other guitar player, they only had one guitar player, and he was like, he had to give up some of his stuff. So he was like a little bit like, "I don't know if I want to do that." But then we tried it, and he really liked the sound, so it was just on from then on.
Okay.
And I cut my hair for nothing. You know, I'm like, but yeah, I stayed, and we
Little Dumb and Dumber bowl haircut.
Yeah, yeah. No, not quite like that, but that'd have been funny. I love that movie.
You get along well with me then. You really will, let me tell you. Oh, yeah. Okay, so basically, now you're in the band, and then when did you, how'd you guys, I mean, this is a question that everyone has, how'd you get big? How did that happen? Because so many people want to do that. How'd you do it?
We did it, what we did was we plastered our hometown with stickers everywhere. We called it Korn. It was just, I don't know, we came up with Korn, kind of like that movie Children of the Corn. It was just and he's saying about childhood things that pain, you know, abuse, or getting picked on by bullies. It was like he was regressing back to those days and stuff. Yeah. And the R was backwards, so we put this sticker everywhere, and they're like, everyone's like, "What? You see this Korn stick, Korn? What is that?" Yeah. So everybody knew about it, and then we'd have parties at our studio. We'd play out anywhere and everywhere. We'd book shows in Hollywood. We would rent a bus, get a keg, put it on the back of the bus, and have our friends pitch in $5 each. He would pay for the bus and the keg, and we just roll up to these clubs in Hollywood and just pack them out. And so people were like, "This band Korn, man, they're doing all this stuff and bringing people money. Yeah. Everyone's making money." So they're like, the record companies start out and they're like, "Oh, maybe we can make some money off them," you know. So
you created your own excitement and brought the people with you.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a really smart business move right there.
Hey, we had it.
There you go. And so now you got some success behind your belt. When did someone say, "Here's a business deal, let's put this together, here's a record deal"? When did that happen?
It was Sony, or I was actually, it was Immortal Records through Epic Sony. And it was really cool because we were just playing, and we didn't know, our managers was like, you gotta go when it's hot, you know what I mean? Because sometimes record companies will come and they'll be interested, and if you play them too much and you play the game, give us a higher number or whatever, then they'll lose interest, and then it'll just, your time will pass. So we went with a label, and it was like I said, it was Immortal Records, but they ended up giving us it was a couple $100,000 for recording costs, and we got $40,000 each. So it was dang, we won the lottery, you know, and
right.
That's a lot. I mean, I worked at Pizza Hut, you know, these guys, yeah. And I was so excited that I quit my job before I actually got the check. So I was I was couch surfing, waiting for my money to come. So it was crazy. But those guys got the band members, they got $40,000. They went and bought Mercedes right away. They acted like hip hop stars or something, but I got a Volkswagen and put my money in the bank, man. I was like, I'm not gonna be poor again, you know? Crazy.
There's a lesson.
Crazy.
There's a lesson, right? Okay, so now you get the contract, you put the album out, and what were your expectations on the first album, and what happened?
Well, I mean, like a dream come true for us would have been 300,000 records, and that was like,
Wasn't there some, you said there was a band right before you that did that you're kind of benchmarking off of?
yeah, like House of Pain. Remember that band? Jump
Yeah.
Around. That
Yeah.
band.
Okay.
They were on the same label, and they're like, that was the big act. So we were
Yeah.
like, if we do that, man, that would be awesome. But the guy that we did something to make the owner of the label mad. So he called us in a meeting once, and he goes, "You guys don't have any melody. You're good, but you're not that good, and you're only gonna sell 90,000 records." And we're like, "Why'd you even sign us, dude? You don't even like us or believe in us,
Right.
you know?" So, but we passed that mark, and we ended up going gold on like our 4th tour with Ozzy Osbourne, and it was just amazing. It was crazy.
Yeah. Wow. Well, so tell them what happened when you went gold. This is kind of cool, like the night of. Like,
Ozzy Osbourne and Sharon came into our dressing room, and they had champagne, and they're like, "Congratulations, you went gold." And Ozzy was like going, "Yeah, congratulations, baby."
and you're like, what did he say? I don't understand what he's...
Yeah, Sharon had to like be his interpreter, but but it was cool because I had that dude's poster when I was a kid. You know, they had fake blood come out of his mouth, and I had him all over my room, and I just listened to him all the time. I loved Randy Rhoads, who was a guitar player. He passed away, but man, he's an awesome player. But you know, it was just surreal.
So you're touring with like one of your idols right there.
Yeah,
That
it's
is
like
crazy.
And every night after our show, we go out into the crowd and watch him. You know, I'm like, this is awesome.
That's crazy. So here you are, you're touring, things are blowing up. Now at the time, almost everyone in the band had a girlfriend, right?
Yeah, we all had girlfriends before we got a record deal and everything. So they were there, like they'd come visit us all when we're recording. And when we hit the road, it was kind of hard, you know. It's like they all got to hang out when we were on the road, and you know. And when we got bigger, it became harder because they know, like, you know.
Yeah.
Groupies and all that stuff, and we're like, oh no, it's cool. But as time went on, we were like, you know, we were doing stuff we shouldn't have.
Mm-hmm. So now you're kind of torn. You were telling me this the other service that you got the groupie thing going on, but then you want it both ways. You got a family back home too. So tell us about what that's doing to you.
Yeah, a couple of those other guys were just like all over that. You know, I'm kind of a shy guy, always been. You know, and so I would hang around with the party, but I never really got into that. But I fell into some traps, you know, just like any, you know, normal male would, I think.
Yeah,
but
sure.
yeah, it was just really crazy. But it got dark pretty fast because like the drugs crept in, and there's like drug dealers showing up, and like most of the crew in a rock tour, they're messing around, you know, doing drugs. So like if you have enough beers or whatever, and you end up doing something stupid. So there was kind of a cloud going on, and it just it wasn't really exciting like I thought it was going to be. You know, at first it really was. First album cycle, it was cool. First time I went to Europe, it was cool. But then it just became like just life, you know. It became kind of like a job that you get drunk at. Sorry.
No,
It was
no,
like,
but it's true. So basically, the alcohol's heavy, groupies, all that. Then the drugs come in, and tell us the progression of how that kind of happened.
yeah, the alcohol really got bad. The second record, we got endorsed by Jägermeister, and we're like, yay, free Jaeger, you know what I mean? And
Right.
then meanwhile, we're like throwing up at night, you know, because we get free Jaeger, and like our singer got really bad, and he was just drinking the stuff and getting really, really, like, he'd be shaking the next day, wanting to kill himself. Then he'd get drunk the next night, and we're like, he'd like come up he punched a couple of us, and just like, what is he punching us for, man? We can kill this guy, but we're like, you know, we're just like, he's just drunk, don't worry about it. Then he would throw up, and then like a couple times he'd say, come here, and we'd all go into the bathroom, and he would like drink his puke out of the toilet just to like gross us out and stuff. It was just, I'm just being real. This is the rock star life that everybody wants. So it's not everything you need, but
Yeah.
it got worse and worse, and the drugs got worse. I'd go through phases. I'd do drugs, and then I'd stop doing drugs, then I'd do drugs, and me and my girl at the time, we'd do it at home once in a while, and I would think that I left, it would just be a one-time thing, but when I left, she was doing it more and more, so it was getting really bad.
And then you guys have a baby.
Yeah, that was awesome because like before Korn, I didn't say this earlier, but she got pregnant right before my first album came out. And I was like, what do you want to do? And she was like, well, you're leaving. And, we didn't have just barely any money and stuff like that. So I was like, I'll just support you. And she's like, I'm not ready. I want to have an abortion. So she actually went to the abortion clinic and she couldn't do it. And so she was really strong. She found adoptive parents for her. She interviewed like a few families and found this one family that really wanted a daughter or, a child. And it was, we ended up having a daughter. And that was like the hardest day of my life. Like right before my Korn tour, I had this child and I was like, it was, the baby was born and we were like holding it, just like tears were dropping on the baby.
Yeah.
Because we're like, there's people outside that we're going to give this child to. I want to go out there and say, go home. I want this baby now. But I just knew it was best for the child. So when we had gotten married, like 3 or 4 years later, we had another baby, and we made it through all that. And this was like, I cleaned up, I shocked my body and ate vegetables and went to the gym every day. And it was just like, we were good, like we were really going to be good parents, and it lasted for a couple months. But then I had a show in Japan. I flew out to Japan, and I was like, Rage Against the Machine, you guys know that band? That was like my favorite band. So I was like, man, I gotta have some beers while I watch Rage, So I started drinking again, and then just downhill. And I'd come home from tour, and it was hard because my baby, like when she started like being able to walk and stuff, and I'd come home and say, come here, and she'd like go stand by her mom and be like, she didn't even know me, you know what I mean? And it was like she was afraid of me, and I was like, I'm your dad, and so that was hard, and just life was just crazy, and
So at this point, now the albums and tours are going crazy. I mean, you guys sold 30 million albums. That's a pretty select number of bands that have done that kind of volume. That's impressive. That's amazing.
Yeah, I don't know how. I mean, just knuckleheads from Bakersfield, California. I don't know how it happened. Like, I'm sitting here at MTV Music Awards. We won a couple Grammys, nominated for like 4 or something like that. Won a couple. We won an MTV Music Award. Christina Aguilera, and Tommy Lee from Motley Crue. Like, that guy was all over my wall too, and he's like giving me an award. I'm sitting behind Eminem. I could flick his ear if I wanted to, and like, it's just surreal. You know what I mean?
That may not have gone well if you flick his ear, by the way.
Yeah, he was next to Dre. Dre probably would have knocked me out. But just surreal life. But there's always a dark cloud just waiting to just drama waiting to happen. After the MTV Awards, we ended up at this party, and we're like, oh my gosh, there's Madonna. And Madonna was at this party talking to Paul McCartney. I'm like, that's like the biggest, most popular people. I mean, you can't get bigger than the Beatles, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's like, and afterwards we ended up, my wife did cocaine that night. I didn't do it, but we ended up fighting all night. And it was just like, man, why is there so much drama in my life? Why can't we just be, why can't I just be a musician and enjoy, be normal,
Right.
But we never were.
So you've got everything going good in the world as far as money, fame, people are loving you guys, everything you want. And how are you doing personally through all this?
I'm trying to figure out what life's really about, because we're just doing another record. I love the music. I love recording and creating music. That was my thing.
Yeah.
The whole rock star stuff, the touring and stuff was not my thing. And that was just okay, you got to go out and do your job. That was a job to me. And like I said, I all kinds of alcohol and stuff. So I just drank I just drank it all away. Whenever I felt weird or bad, I just would drink. And so it got really bad for me when me and my wife were doing the meth once in a while, off and on, and that stuff just is jacked up, man. And I would pull in just a porn and stuff into my marriage, and it started deteriorating my marriage, you know what I mean? And just so, and when I would leave to go back on tour, I wouldn't do the drugs anymore, but she would continue, and I thought she would stop like me, but she didn't have that strength. So I was just ruining it, and the drugs got worse and worse, and she hooked up with some just bad people. They were skinheads, second strike felons. Mm-hmm. They were coming to my house while having parties, and my daughter's there and stuff like that. And so I mean, they're skinhead dudes, and they're like, they hated like other races, and I'm like, what are they doing to my house? You know, my friend owned a pawn shop, and he called me, said, dude, there's a skinhead here in my shop, and he's trying to hawk a solid gold Korn necklace that you have. And I was like, oh my gosh, what's going on? I called my wife, and she's like denying everything. And then I sent one of my friends over to our house with a gun because I knew these guys were ransacking my house, you know, and luckily they weren't there, the skinheads or my wife, but my daughter was there with a babysitter. And from that moment on, I was on tour with Metallica. I took my daughter out on the road with me because it was over. The marriage was over. And I was off my rocker, but she was way off her rocker. She was way worse.
So she essentially leaves with this guy,
Yeah.
with this skinhead. Now so you go, you put on the suit, you go down to the courthouse, and
that's what meth will do to you, man. She didn't even show up to fight for custody, her own mom, you know. And so I hated her. I hated meth. I didn't do meth anymore. We got divorced. She said she was going to take half my money in the courts and everything. And I said, if you try to take half my money, I will have you killed. I was like, my money was my God. I was poor before, and no one was going to take my money. I didn't care who it was. But, you know, I wouldn't have done nothing, but I was that angry to threaten that and everything.
Yeah.
So she ended up settling for $800,000, and she spent it in like 5 months on skinheads and partying and like that. It was just crazy. The same bank guy that I had her money, and he's like, Brian, she's just pulling money out like every week, and it's just, she's almost gone. And then it was just totally gone. And I swore I was going to do meth again, man. But I tried to get clean, and you know, I was good for a while. You know, I was
so your
working
daughter
out.
is now literally on tour with Metallica.
Yeah, she's on tour with Metallica. Our big old security guards were like doing stroller rides with her and everything. And I hired a nanny, and I would like play a show, get off of the stage, and go like change diapers. It was the whole thing. I just did what I had to do. You know, this is my kid. She was my little angel.
Yeah.
You know, but
that's wild.
But there was a tug of war going on because here's my little angel. You know, I want her to grow up and be all pure and everything. But then, you know, I'm into this lifestyle with craziness and like the porno and everything like that. So it's like there was a tug of war going on. But one thing that happened when I got into drugs later on, I ended up getting into meth again. I mean, be careful who you judge and like think is a low life, because I ended up falling into meth. I was just hanging around my hometown. There was Bakersfield. I moved back there, and this guy that I knew had some employees that dealt it and did it and stuff like that. So he got a sack, and then like a week later got a sack, and then it turned into an everyday habit. And I did drugs every day for 2 years. I did meth. I took it all over the world, and it was just my dream turned into a nightmare, and I was living a nightmare.
So I mean that's dangerous. You're taking drugs into countries that, I mean, you know, we have pretty strict rules in America, but other countries their rules are way harder than ours. So you're risking your very life taking drugs into Japan, China, Europe, wherever you are.
Yeah, man. I grew up like in a house. My parents are still together this day, you know, and we're like pretty normal house and stuff. And I'm doing stuff that I never would have done before.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about my daughter. I'm scared, but I'm so addicted that I was like, I need to be able to play the shows. If I stop doing meth, I'm going to crash for a month.
Yeah.
You know, and I didn't have no time for that because it was just busy, big tour, and it just kept going.
Yeah.
So I didn't have any time. If I would have told everybody, look, I'm jacked up on drugs and I need to get off, they would have, you know, they love me. They would have said, dude, you take some time off, we'll cancel a tour, whatever. But I was too ashamed to talk about it. It was my own private little hell, you know. I was two people just juggling this thing.
That's powerful, man. He said it was two people. And guys, I want to just stop real quick and just say, that doesn't just happen to rock stars, and you guys know what I'm talking about. I think many of us sometimes feel like we're two people. It's like, okay, there's the public me who looks like I got it together, and then there's the private me that's got this private hell going on that no one knows about. And if people knew the struggle, people knew the addiction, if people knew whether it's porn, whether it's drugs, alcohol, you know, I mean, there's soccer moms that got a secret meth issue that are here. There's good, you know, business guys that also do weed and started when they were in college and don't know how to quit now that they're 45 years old. I mean, I thought this isn't just rock stars. And, you know, and I just hope you know today, coming here, that there is hope for you. I mean, that God can change all that, and you're seeing it, and that God can make a change. So here you are. You've got this secret addiction. You're traveling all over the world. You guys are selling millions of records. hundreds of thousands of people coming to hear you guys in concert, and you're miserable.
Yeah, life didn't make sense. I had everything I ever wanted,
Yeah.
And but I just couldn't buy my happiness, And even when I was sober, I was like, I just felt like gloomy and stuff. I just, everyone thought like I had this magical life, but meanwhile, like all of us, I'm not just a whiny guy in Korn either. Everybody had problems, and I'm like, well, we're all miserable. Why? Like, what's the point of this life? It didn't make sense at all.
You're saying too that like, so the drugs are heavy at this point. You guys get connected personally with the porn industry too. Like we're not talking about watching videos. I'm talking about actual porn industry people now.
Yeah, I mean like hanging around with friends, just like because they're people too. They're doing that for a living and they want to make it or whatever. And a lot of these people are just like musicians. They're like they're into drugs and they come from a hard background. And most of those girls, they look all beautiful and everything on the film, but back behind the scenes, they're abused when they're kids, and they're acting out of their abuse, and that's unfortunately what people abused like do too often, And it's really demonic, how that stuff happens. And we were hanging around with them a little bit. I couldn't hang out with them too much because my wife would just beat me up, because
my wife would too. That's funny. We have that in common.
Yeah.
Yeah. How many guys would agree with that? My wife would beat me up. Yes. But it's funny, you said something that's pretty powerful. I mean, you threw it out there casually, but I think it's a big deal. Dude, it is demonic. I mean, it really is. And so you kept using the word dark earlier, too.
Gloomy and dark. Yeah, just the depression hanging over you, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was constant for me. And all of us, we were all, like, wasted all the time, And, like, if we got sober, we couldn't even stay sober long enough because we were just miserable, You're like, oh, I want to feel good and get sober. When you get sober, you're, like, depressed. So it's like, you just want to get high all the time, That's all we knew.
Yeah. So you got this terrible cycle going on now in the middle of this, at the height of the career, and at the same time, the depth of your personal life. All of this, you meet the most odd Christian. How's that happen?
Yeah, this guy, he's like, he builds these crazy cars, like just crazy cars, and he lifts Hummers like 14 inches off the ground. He's like involved in this show called SEMA in Vegas, and he was just, you build cars
Someone
too?
knows it. Someone knows it.
Cool.
All right.
Doug the Birdie. I don't know if you know who that is, but man, he was just like, hey man, what's up? And he was a Christian. His wife was more into it than him, but I was like, man, these people aren't like Ned Flanders on The Simpsons, So I was doing business deals with him. He was rich, doing like, making land deals and making money. And he was like, I want to do a bigger deal. I need someone to partner with. And he was like, hey, go ask your friend from Korn. He asked this mutual friend, he's got money. We can put it in together. So I did a couple deals with him. And God was setting something up, though. Because in my mind, I was going, man, because at that time, I didn't like being in Korn that much, anymore. But I was addicted to drugs. And I didn't know how to quit because I was addicted to the money, too. So I was like, maybe I could get into real estate and have something to fall back on. I can kind of pull away from Korn later on. But so God was using that in my life. But we did some deals, and I was on meth the whole time. Like, look, on the outside, Mr. Success. And on the inside, I was just a closet meth addict. And at the end of 2004, my daughter was growing up. She's starting to repeat stuff, And a couple times I'm even like, because I had a problem with my mouth, And I'm like, I'm cussing in the car in traffic or whatever. And she's like repeating the words. I'm like, honey, you can't say that stuff. That was when she was younger. And then when around 2004, like I come home from a tour. I took her on like for a couple weeks. Yeah. And she's like skipping around the house singing like All Day I Dream About Sex. From Korn. It's a song called Adidas, and I'm like going, don't sing that. She's looking at me going, why? That's Daddy's song, And I'm like, yeah. So it's like, it was just like my life didn't make sense, It was like, who am I? Am I this dad for this girl, this cute little girl, or am I like this rock star in this vulgar band? You know what I mean? It was just like, who am I? So, but I ended up in that church, and when I got there, the pastor was like talking about Jesus like he was real, and he'd get real serious and go, man, I remember one time I threw my fiance against a wall, and I had so much anger, and I just gave my life to God, because he grew up in church, but he found himself slipping. And he's like, I gave myself to him. He's like, God is so real. If you just hang out with him and talk to Jesus every day, your life will totally change for the better. I'm like, man, it sounded so good to be, like, I wanted it to be true.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I never knew nothing like that, because I got sprinkled water when I was a kid at Episcopal church, you know? That's all I knew. And this guy saying God was real, he's either a real good, he was either real or he's a cult leader and he had all these people fooled, you know? But
Right.
because you don't know when you don't know God.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you mean? That sounds like a fairy tale, like a magical, invisible Jesus will help your life, you know? It sounded too good to be true, but I was at my end. I went to the top doctors in Hollywood to try to get free. And man, I'm telling you, I was like, I'll try it. If it doesn't work, I received Christ that day. I went home, and just like that video said, I went to my drug room and prayed and said, God, I can't stop this stuff. That guy said, bring all your baggage. Take this stuff from me or I'm done. You know what I mean? I didn't know if I was talking to the wall or whoever, but long story short, what changed me, I took what I got at that church and I went home and started praying. What changed me was when I felt God's presence a couple weeks later, I was thumbing through my Bible. It seemed like every page I turned to was like speaking to me, you know? I was like, whoa. And I felt this divine love pour into my soul, and it completely changed my life.
So you literally felt his presence come over you.
Yeah, just like the Bible says, like these people are like, nothing like Jesus coming through a wall and saying, hey, what's up, or nothing, but like, I felt like divine love and peace like nothing else. And I was like, this is why I'm miserable. This is why the money can't satisfy me. This is why the fame and all my toys can't satisfy me, because I chose the wrong path and I'm trusting in other things. I just got it. You know what? I got it. And I was like, I want you, God. I want everything. And what do you want me to do, basically? And I was still in Korn, and I was like, I don't know what to do. And the crazy truck builder, he was like, dude, stay in Korn. Everybody needs positivity, And one day I was at his house, he was telling me that, and I had this overwhelming sensation I needed to go home and quit Korn and just to be with my kid at home and to learn about God. And so I did it. I sent emails to the guys in Korn because they would have talked me back into staying. What are you, crazy? You can't leave. You're a rock star. Only a crazy person leaves as being a rock star. They would have told me that. I would have said, yeah, you're right. So I sent them emails and I just cut off the relationship for a while right then. And it was hard, but at the same time, this was God. And he was like touching my life. Yeah. Everything stopped right then. I was like, everything stops.
Wow.
I got to figure this out. You guys know, my story's no more important than anybody's here. You know what I mean? And when God touches you, many of you know, there's nothing like it.
That's right. That's right. Exactly right. That's dead on, man. You said, last night you said, I love your quote, man. You just said, I test drove the world and Jesus is better.
Nothing compares.
That's saying it all right there. So what do you say to the guy or the girl who's here and they're thinking, okay, everything you had, I've been pursuing, and so you're telling me all this stuff is for nothing, that everything everything you got is what I want, and you're telling me that's not going to fulfill me, and now they're on the edge and they're looking from the outside, looking whether do I want Jesus? Is this for real? What are you going to tell that person? What would you say to that person right now who's just contemplating it?
First of all, the world didn't end on May 21st, so God's giving you another chance.
That's right.
Today's your day. It's real. My friend Fieldy, the bass player in Korn, he got saved too. He's doing this thing in Korn still. I'm out of Korn. God called me out of Korn. Everyone's different. You know what I mean? And God is so real. He's doing stuff nowadays, man, that is just, this is real stuff, man. It's not like the religion that you knew when you were a kid or whatever you read about. This is real stuff, a real relationship, man. And if you could just find something to rise up inside of you, to throw your life down, you will be tripped out so much how good God is and how real he is. Because he doesn't he wants us to give everything up for him, and some people do it little by little. I jumped all in. I was like, I threw everything down because I'm like, that's how I am. I'm built like that, 100% or nothing. I couldn't just get, hey God, thanks for getting me off drugs. Now I'm gonna go sing about the songs that I wrote on drugs. You know what I mean? And so I'm just not like that. Yeah. And I'm not better than anybody, but just that's who I am. So, man, today's your day. If you're here today and you don't know him, I'm telling you, it's real. I mean, how else would two knuckleheads in Korn get saved, unless God was real,
That's what it's about right there. Listen, right now, I just want to take a moment, and I don't want you to miss this opportunity because you've heard Brian's story, but this is your story now. This is where you realize, okay, this is where I step into the story that God is here, his presence is here, just like that preacher who God used to grab a hold of you, and you began that journey of knowing Christ. Right now, this is where your journey begins, and I want to encourage you right now, we're all going to pray, and we just bow our heads right now, and you can accept Christ right here and right now, because listen, Brian Head Welch test drove the world. He tried everything there is to try, had everything there is to have, and it left him empty. Jesus is the only thing that will ever satisfy you. And I want to encourage you right now, don't waste the time, energy, and heartbreak required to learn those lessons. Why don't you just get Jesus now? So with your head bowed and your eyes closed, we're going to pray. We're going to pray together. And those of you who already prayed this prayer, we're going to pray it with those beside us who need to pray. Is that cool? And so if you want to receive Christ right now, you just pray with us right now. You can just say this out loud. You can say, Dear Jesus, I realize I need you. Thank you for dying on the cross for me. Thank you for raising to life again and paying the price for my sin. Forgive me for all I've done. Please come in my heart, be my Lord, and be my Savior. Thank you, Jesus, for saving me. In your name we pray. Amen. Isn't God good?